Gurur Brahma, Gurur Vishnu, Gurur Devo Maheshwara, Gurureva Param Brahma, Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha. Chinmayam Vyapyat Sarvam, Trilokyam Sacharacharam, Tatpadam Darshitam Yena, Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha. Tvameva Mata Cha Pita Tvameva, Tvameva Bandhuscha Sakha Tvameva, Tvameva Vedya Dravinam Tvameva, Tvameva Sarvam Mama Deva Deva, Tvameva Sarvam Mama Deva Deva. Om Sahana Bhavatu, Sahana Bhunaktu, Sahaviryam Karavavahai, Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. So we're continuing our discussion on that very hard verse, verse 11. You grieve for whom you should not grieve, though you speak words of wisdom. The wise grieve neither for the living or the dead, nor the dead. And our poet Vyasa then goes into what I call spiritual anthropology. And we talked about the levels that Gita is teaching on here. The physical level, what we call the stula sharira, the physical gross body. The subtle level, the sukshma sharira, also known as the antakarana, what we refer to in English as the transmigrating soul. And could someone mute their mic, please? It just came on. And then the Atman, the Paramatman, the Supreme Self, which is birthless, changeless, and deathless. So it is the physical body that is born, grows up, grows old, and dies. It is the subtle body that moves from incarnation to incarnation. But all the elements of the gross and subtle body are what we call jada, or inert. They are not conscious. They are not sentient. Only I, the subject, is sentient. And in fact, that is ajati. It is unborn. And we finished up with a meditation verse last week, where we had these various descriptors. They do not define the self, they only point. And we talked about how when we have these meditation verses that turn our attention back on I, aham, We look to see in a quiet mind, the space between our thoughts. Look to see if this is true about myself. If we objectify the self, Deepa gives her ideas about the self, and I give my ideas about the self, as if it's something that's hovering up there in the sky. That does nothing to free us. We have to start with our direct experience. I usually hold up the book or hold up something. Tonight, I hold up the phone. Who sees the phone? I do. That's yourself. So we're going to directly investigate that ground of being, the very awareness that illumines the gross and the subtle. All right, so did we do number 20, Deepa, or are we starting with number 20 tonight?
We did number 20.
All right, number 21, please.
Sure, just a second. Veda vinashinam nityam ya enama jamavyayam katham sa purusha partha kanghatayati hantikam. Whoever knows him to be indestructible, eternal, unborn, and inexhaustible, how can that man slay, O Partha, or cause others to be slain?
Yes. So here, this verse starts to point at a teaching that we'll go into in depth in the 5th chapter. And that is, who or what is the agent? We have the term karta, which means doer, and we have the term bhokta, which means enjoyer. Here, by enjoy, we mean experiencer. So you enjoy positive things, you enjoy negative things. That's what it means. So, what is it that we're going to come to see? We are now beginning to have suggested these practices of drik, drishya, vivek, discrimination between the seer and the seen, between the self and the not self, the subject and all the objects. The rules of the meditation are, if it has a beginning and an end, if it has form or qualities, if it occurs in time and space, if it's in the past, present, or future, if it's in the gross or subtle world, if it's in the waking, dream, or deep sleep state exclusively. Most importantly, if it can be objectively known, it is anatman, not self. So let's run briefly through what we are not. So when you were a child, you had a little body. And in adolescence, your body changed. And then as you went into adulthood, your body changed again. Are you not aware of the changes in your body? You have been the knower of these changes. You just take a moment and do something simple like become aware of the breath in the body. Are you not the knower of the breath in the body? So in fact, you have a subject-object relationship with the body. You are not the body. We go one level more subtle to the level of energy, to what we call the pranamaya kosha, the vital air sheath. So sometimes I feel full of energy and, oh, I can go out and conquer the world. Other times, oh, I just feel so tired. I was talking with Deepa. She's getting over a bit of a cold or something, and she feels low energy. She's tired. So we're aware of the energy level rising and falling. I am not the prana. I'm the knower of the prana. Anatman. Neti. Not this. Not this. We go to a more subtle level, the level of feelings and judgments, what we call the manomaya kosha, a mental sheath. Sometimes I feel joy, sometimes I feel sorrow. Sometimes I feel great enthusiasm, sometimes I'm bored. Sometimes I'm angry, sometimes I'm sad. The feelings go by. We have this wonderful palette, like a painter, of all these colors of feelings. Whatever it is I am feeling, I am the knower of the feelings. I have a subject-object relationship with my feelings. I am not my feelings. Nethi. Not this. Not this. Now we go to an even subtler level, to the realm of what we call the intellectual sheath, the vijnanamaya kosha. In your head, do the problem, 2 + 2. Remember what you had for lunch. In your mind's eye, visualize a mango. That place is called your intellect. But our thoughts go by like your hand in front of your face. I am not my thoughts. I am the knower of my thoughts. Now, one of the thoughts in the Vijnanamaya Kosha is what we call ahankriti, ahankara. It's the coordinator of data. So it seems like it's the same me that got up this morning, that had lunch today, that's here at class this evening. I can be very self-conscious. A lot of people feel self-conscious, say, when they're doing public speaking, if you have to do a presentation at work. Other times you're not aware of it. You're deeply engrossed in music or dancing or making love. Then ahankara thins out. So we watch it rise and fall. I am not that ego sense. I'm the knower of it. Then we come to the subtlest part of us, the Anandamaya Kosha, the bliss sheath. This is what we experience in its fullest state in deep sleep. Everybody loves a deep sleep because whatever your problems are, they go away in deep sleep. Well, I'm unconscious in deep sleep. And I say, well, are you? I can prove to you that you are aware in deep sleep. And we do that through the law of memory. The experiencer and the rememberer must be the same entity. For example, Deepa, do you know what I had for lunch today?
No, I don't.
Why not?
Because I didn't see it happen.
You weren't there. Do you know what you had for lunch today?
I do.
You were there. Did you sleep well last night?
Yep.
Did I sleep well last night?
I'm not sure.
You do not know. So if you know you had a good night's sleep, through memory, you wake up in the morning and say, oh, I slept so soundly, I didn't move all night. You were there to illumine the dark nothingness of pure ignorance. Here is the self, always shining. Here is the mind, the waking state, in the dream state, folded up into deep sleep. Now watch very carefully. This is samadhi. Then the mind returns and says, oh my gosh, there's nobody there. That's what happens. But you are beyond the body, the mind, the intellect, and even the ignorance of deep sleep. And you have these qualities that are pointed to by this verse. So let's go through each one of these descriptors. Will you help us out here? Deepa, what was the first one?
Whosoever knows him to be indestructible.
Indestructible. The body can go through its problems. Life can go through its problems. I can have emotional reactions, mental doubts, etc. But none of it gets all the way to me. I'm like the eye of the cyclone. Always sthita, still, established. Don't believe me. Keep checking out yourself with this introversion of the attentive faculty. See whether or not you are indestructible. Next idea.
Eternal.
Yes. You are always there. Wherever you go, there you are. Throughout all of your past, there you are. Whatever happens in the future, you will be there. You are an eternal factor outside of the changes in the phenomenal world. It's all going to be okay because nothing can harm you. Next idea.
Unborn.
Yes, unborn. The body is born, but you are ajati. You are not born. Self is unborn and deathless. Next idea.
Inexhaustible.
Yes. There's no end to me. In these moments of very quiet meditation into the silent land of I, we see that the self is vast and empty, like a shoreless ocean. Yoga Vasishtha uses the term Chidakash, the vast space of consciousness itself. Next idea.
It just goes on to say that how can that man slay, O Partha, or cause others to be slain?
Yes. So the self is not the doer nor the experiencer. The doer is the body mind intellect complex. We act based on the qualities of our minds, gunas, and the force of the past maturing, karma, as it interacts with the society at large, the external karma of the whole society. There's no me there doing the doing. I am there, but ever the unattached, witnessing consciousness. Next verse.
This is the different meter. Vasamsi jirnani yatha vihaya navani gruyati naroparani तथा शरीराणि विहाय जीर्णानि अन्यानि संयाति नवानि देहि. Just
Very good. You got it.
thank you. Um, just as a man casts off his worn out clothes and puts on new ones, so also the embodied self casts off its worn out bodies and enters others which are new.
So here now he shifts our attention to this transmigrating soul, the antakarana. This is why you need a commentary to know from where the scripture is talking. So just like at the end of the day, you take off your trousers and your blouse or your shirt, throw them into the dirty clothes. The next day, after you've taken your shower in the morning, you put on clean clothes. But you are the same you. It's just your clothes that change. I have a pair of blue jeans that I have been wearing for a long, long, long time. The cuff has now started to fray, and then the knee is beginning to go. Now, the young people, they like to have these jeans all full of holes and things like that. Not my style. So they're about ready to be cast off. I'm going to buy a new pair of jeans. So also, subtle body impelled by its desires takes up a physical form. At some level, you chose your parents, you chose where you would be born, you chose the environment you would grow up in because of the experiences you wanted to garner. Now, what do we mean by this? The body is essentially a vehicle for experience. So, if, for example, I want to go from San Francisco to Hawaii, I can fly, I can take a boat, but I cannot drive or take the train. Wrong vehicle. Hypothetically, if I want to go from here to Las Vegas, I can drive a car, I can take a bus. Might be able to take a train, I don't know. But you can't take a boat. Wrong vehicle. So if in your subtle body you set up certain things you wanted to experience, certain desires you wanted to fulfill, this determines the life that we have. This we call our prarabdha karma, the karma of this very body in this very life. Then when we've learned our lessons, when the prarabdha is finished, guess what happens? You die. So yoga says nobody dies early. What about these children who die, at 4 or 5, childhood diseases? Is that a terrible tragedy? Well, we look at it from our viewpoint. We have a loss. The child is gone. But from the child's viewpoint, they learned what they were supposed to learn this life. Exercise their escape clause. Out they go.
Hey, Jim, could I ask a question on that? Sorry, did I interrupt?
One more thought. Same thing with older people. Oh, grandma, she's so worn out. She's got dementia and terrible arthritis. She's suffering so much. Oh, grandma, you can let go. Well, she's not done yet. How do we know when she's done? She's dead. So, is that Fang who had the question?
Yes. Hey, Jim, how's it going?
Recognize your voice. Go ahead.
My question is this. I guess at the moment of death in the prior lifetime, whatever last thought you have becomes that desire for whatever the next life becomes, right? Because, and maybe I'm reading too deeply into this.
No, that's too simplistic.
Okay.
That's too simplistic. So what happens is all our mental faculties gather and we set up the next incarnation with our sanchitta karmas and our agami karmas if we don't attain liberation. So you're an Asian woman. How tall are you?
5'4".
Yeah, you're a small Asian woman. How much do you weigh?
Probably 118.
My God, my left leg weighs more than that. Well, if 2 lifetimes ago you had the desire to be a sumo wrestler, you have the wrong body. So sanchitta karma would be, well, you got to wait till another lifetime to fulfill that desire. I'm making it simplistic here.
Oh, I see what you're saying. So it's not just the prior lifetime. It could be other lifetimes before as well.
Other lifetimes, unfulfilled desires. Because, you start making choices which are the strongest desires.
Okay.
So there's lots and lots of vasana pressure that determines this. Much of this in ignorance and foolishness, by the way.
I guess if you don't mind my asking a little bit deeper on this, then you said one chooses what the next set of experiences are going to be. You choose your parents, your environment, etc. But if you were actually consciously choosing this, or is it more mechanical based on the strongest desires? Because if you were consciously choosing, why wouldn't everybody just choose liberation?
Because people seek the good by their understanding of it.
So if you were never exposed to the idea of liberation in any of the prior lifetimes, it's very unlikely you will ever want that for a future lifetime.
Except, what is the dharma of the human mind?
Liberation.
The dharma of the human mind is that it's a pleasure seeker, pain avoider mechanism. From the moment you get up in the morning to the moment your head hits the pillow at night, that's all you do is seek the good by your greatest understanding of it. And if your greatest understanding of it is rob, cheat, and steal so you can get drugs, that's what you do. If you have matured spiritually, you may think the greatest good is to be altruistic. in some sense. At some point, we begin to awaken to the spiritual life.
And
Can you
do
guys
think-
all hear me?
Yes.
There's something, I think a text came in on my phone and it went up on my pad. That's okay.
But does that mean then if in this lifetime you start desiring this, that this was something you asked for or desired before this lifetime?
I wouldn't worry about it.
Okay.
It's all here in the now. And you don't even need to believe in reincarnation. For example, did you go to college?
Yes.
What did you major in?
Social studies.
Are you doing social studies now?
No.
Interesting, isn't it? So you had an incarnation as a social student.
Right.
And then you made a decision. You wanted to go into, I forget what you do. You've told me and I've forgotten.
In the financial space.
Do you enjoy it?
It's a good question. Asking myself that. So
Are you thinking you might want to do a career change?
potentially, yes.
Yeah, that we could say is another incarnation in this life, impelled by your desires, impelled by the force of the past. I mean, somebody else may never think to get involved in finance. Why would anybody want to do that? I'd rather be a musician. You ever thought of being a musician?
Nope.
Yeah. No desire, no karma in that direction. You see. So we rarely ask, well, why do I want what I want? And yoga answers that question because of associations, environments, decisions, experiences we've had not only in this life, but in prior lives.
Interesting.
You see. And you don't need to go causation hunting because all the material is right here. You don't have to go to a psychic and have past life readings and all that kind of nonsense. I mean, if you go, it can be of interesting. You never know whether or not they know what they're doing. But the point is, you know what your impulses are.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yes, that does. Thank you.
So I always teach the doctrine of reincarnation from the traditional Hindu viewpoint, where you move from physical body to physical body. But I also say you do not need to believe in the doctrine of reincarnation because you can use the same principles. So, for example, you grew up in an Asian family. Where's your family from?
China originally.
China. But are you a second generation, third generation?
First.
Your parents moved here.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so they probably have a lot of more traditional Chinese values. Now, like my friend Kathy is Japanese, but she's fifth generation Hawaiian Japanese. You know, she's more American than most white people, you know. They're very different, if you know what I mean. It just has to do with what kind of enculturation you have, you see. So we can say that's an incarnation. I suspect the values that you had as a child have colored much of your values as you've grown up. Sometimes we're rebelling against them. I spent a whole lot of time in my youth rebelling against my father's values. A lot of young people do that. That's not freedom either, if you know what I mean. Did that help, Fang?
Yes. Thanks, Jim.
Excellent question. Excellent question. Folks, I'm going to see if I can get rid of this, make this text thing go away. Yes, I did. Great. Thank you. Can you guys all see me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Any other questions before we go on? Next one then.
Verse 23. Nainam chindanti shasrani, nainam dahati pavakaha, na chainam kledayantyapo, na shoshayati marutaha. Weapons cleave it not, fire burns it not, water moistens it not, wind dries it not.
So here in the language of poetry, he's talking about how the self in me, we're back up to the level of the absolute, the Paramatma, and we're seeing how nothing touches it. So when he says, weapons cleave it not, fire burns it not, wind doesn't touch it. What's one of the other ones? Water?
Water moistens it not.
Yes. So all these various things that can happen to us in the physical world, none of that touches the self. It only gets as far as my physical body. And here, this is just poetry. It means all of the physical experiences, meaning a layoff at work, a downturn in the economy, my grandmother dies, I get sick, I get in a car accident, I gain too much weight and can't get into my pants. You know, all these various things that can happen to us only affect the body. The emotions will react to it. If the situation is conducive, I'm happy. If the situation is non-conducive, I'm unhappy. The intellect makes its judgments of success and failure. All of that never touches me. Now, don't believe me. Don't believe the scripture. Swamiji always used to say you need to be a spiritual scientist. So here our poet Vyasa has set out a hypothesis. Nothing touches yourself. Prove or disprove it in the laboratory of your own direct experience. How? Remember what we talked about at the beginning of class tonight. Subject object discrimination. I am the subject. Anything of which I can be aware is an object. If it has a beginning and an end, if it occurs in time and space, if it has qualities or characteristics, if it's in the gross or subtle world, if it's in the past, present, or future exclusively, if it has name and form, if it's an object, an emotion, or a thought, if it's your physical body, if it's your mind, if it's your intellect, all of that is not self, anatman. Who am I? I am the knower of all. And none of the problems, the vicissitudes of the phenomenal world ever touch me. Now you got to prove it. How? Whatever happens, see if you can step back, pause, even when you're upset. Take a deep breath. See if you can just quieten your mind a little bit. Have this deep introversion of the attention. To whom is all this happening? To me. Goham. Who am I? See whether any of this touches you. Any thoughts on this? Next one.
Hi, Jim, this is Shyam. Can I ask you a question?
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's kind of following up on the earlier question about, soul making a choice between lifetimes. So you mentioned that the self or the Atman is unaffected by the body, the mind, and by the emotions. So then, so when the soul passes the body and decides to reincarnate in a new body, how does it retain memory of your desires from your past life? If it's unaffected and totally detached from your desires, your mind, your ego, how does the self retain the memory of that, of the desires from the previous lifetime to make a conscious choice to reincarnate in a new body?
Excellent question. The self is not the locus of memory. The subtle body is the locus of memory. And oftentimes it's just impressions. For example, let's see, what's the date today? The 25th of October? Is that right?
Yes, yes.
What were you doing on the 25th of October 5 years ago?
No.
Do you remember?
No.
Yeah, me neither. But the impressions are there. Your life has moved on in a cause and effect way. Today is the result of yesterday and yesterdays. Tomorrow will be the result of the stuff I did today. And it's cause and effect. So what I'm doing today, even though I'm not directly or consciously aware of it, there is a cause and effect relationship between today and the 25th of October 5 years ago, even though I may not remember it. Now, psychologists tell us that frequently when we have a traumatic experience, we forget it. That denial mechanism is the way in which the psyche protects itself. It is my opinion that dying is usually pretty traumatic for people, and we tend to block it. Those memories can be recovered. Some people, it happens just naturally and spontaneously, just like as an adult, you may remember some trauma from childhood. But it doesn't matter. You do not need to remember your prior incarnations in order to realize yourself. If you're supposed to remember them, they will emerge. But the material is all here, all in the now. The mind is part of the subtle body. So that's where all those impressions go from lifetime to lifetime. You think of, say, a musician like Mozart, who was a child prodigy. He was able to play brilliantly at the age of 5. His father marched him all over the courts of Europe as this kind of Wunderkind, a wonder child. My sense is he was probably a trained musician in a prior life. Came with such facility. So you'll get the impressions even though you may not get the direct memory. Does that make sense?
Yes.
But do not think, remember, the self is not what incarnates. The best metaphor is the self is like space. Think of the glass is like the physical body. The water in the glass is like the subtle body. But the space in the glass is like the self. If I put the glass over here, there's glass space and there's room space. If I move the glass, has anything happened to space? No. Do I have to say, wait a minute, you left the glass space behind? I pick it up and shove it into the glass. No. Is the glass space really separate from the universal space? No. In fact, the glass really has no relationship to the space. I just call it glass space. Space is space. Consciousness is consciousness. It's not really ever divided. And when the glass gets broken, what happens to the space? Nothing. Vigunair, Krishna is going to say, the self is beyond the qualities of mind. Memory is one of those qualities. It is not a function of the self. It's a function of the mind. Excellent question. Did that help?
Yeah, I'm just pondering over it. So it sounds like some qualities of the memory or the mind are retained in the self between lifetimes.
The self is not the locus of memory. The subtle body is the locus of memory.
So do we retain the subtle body between lifetimes?
That's what I was just saying. The subtle body is that which moves from incarnation to incarnation. It's like if I have a glass of water here and an empty glass there, I pour the water in. The water moves from glass to glass. The space is completely untouched. You are like the space. If the water has lemon juice in it, that's like a memory. I can pour the lemon water into another glass. Has the lemon water affected space? No. You are without qualities, nirupaham, without form, nirmalam, without taint. Vast and empty like space. All qualities, all attributes belong to the equipment, not the self. The root of our problem is I superimpose upon myself the qualities of the not self. This is called adhyas, superimposition. Shankara uses the classic example. I do not see the rope. And so in my mind, I think there's a snake. Because I see a snake, I'm frightened. But the rope is still the rope. It hasn't changed. When I investigate the rope, I say, oh, there's no snake. Likewise, when we investigate the self, myself, yourself, how? Atman, anatman, vivechanam, by means of discrimination between the self and the not self. I'm not the body, I'm not the feelings, I'm not the thoughts, I'm not even the unconscious impressions. I'm the unattached witness. Don't believe me? In your meditation, look. You see the world from your viewpoint, I see it from my viewpoint. You are aware of your body, I'm aware of my body. You are aware of your thoughts and feelings, I'm aware of my thoughts and feelings. But when you, as it were, look behind your eyes and notice the knower, Satchidananda Rupaham, you are of the form of pure existence, pure consciousness, and bliss absolute. And when I look behind my eyes and notice the knower, I have the same experience. The self in you and the self in everyone is the same. I am Atma Brahma. This self is Brahma. What do I want to do? I keep wanting to attribute qualities to the self. How are we doing on time? All right, next one. Did that answer your question, or did you have more?
Yeah, I mean, I need to ponder about it a little more, but thank you.
Okay. Next one, please, Deepa.
Verse 24. Achedyoya madahyoya makledyo shosya evacha nitya sarvagata sthanur chaloyam sanatanaha. This self cannot be cut, nor burned, nor moistened, nor dried up. It is eternal, all-pervading, stable, immovable, and ancient.
So here he's talking again in the language of poetry, that anything to do with the phenomenal world cannot touch it. It can't be cut, can't be dried up, can't be moistened, can't be burnt. Those things only affect the phenomenal world, the equipment. We call it the upadis, the equipment. And now he's given us more meditation verses. How do we use these? In the silence of my own meditation, I take each one of these ideas, and with the attention introverted, I try to see if it's true about me. What's the first idea, please, Deepa?
It cannot be cut.
No, beyond those, then when he says the positive qualities.
It is eternal.
Yes, nityam. We've
All-
used this idea before. Did he say nityam?
Yeah, nityaha.
So here it is eternal. See if you ever cease to be. Oh, Jim, I had a bad day yesterday. I had no self. Never have that experience. I was giving a workshop up in Sonoma, Humboldt County, years ago. And there were some Buddhists who were intellectual Buddhists. And I said, anybody here not have a self? Hand goes up. And I said, oh, so you don't have a self? And he said, yes. I said, how do you know this? He says, I've experienced it. Well, something disappeared. I grant you that. We would call it ahankara in our tradition. But the question is, if you had the disappearance of yourself, who knew it? If there's no one there to know it, How do you know it is? You cannot deny yourself. We can be very confused about what it is. So when Buddhism talks about the ground of being, your Buddha nature, primordial mind, pure awareness, they're saying the same thing as the Vedantins. But the Shunyavadnans, the scoliasts of the void, no, ultimate reality is nothing. And they get there by logic, by twisted argument, not by experience. Next idea.
All pervading.
Yes. So just as you as an individuality pervade your whole body, from your nose to your toes, so consciousness pervades the entire creation. What did he say? It was sarvagatam?
Yeah, sarvagataha.
Yeah. Gam gachati means to go. It goes everywhere, all pervading. The entire universe is pervaded by awareness. In fact, it's in awareness. Next idea.
Stable.
Stitha, what's he used there? I forget.
Sthanur.
Yes. Stanum?
Sthanur. Achalo.
Yeah.
There are two words. Sthanur, still, and achalo means no movement.
Yes, yes. So statishtati is the root, that which stands, which is still, which does not move. Achalam comes from chalchalati, which means to move. Chala, 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 chala. So achalam means it does not move. It is completely still. Just like when you look at a mirror and you see your face in it, or you see the shower behind you, or the towels on the rack, you can move the towels around and things like that. The images appear to move, but the mirror actually never moves. In fact, the images in the mirror are the mirror itself appearing as those names and forms. Scriptures use this idea, pratibimba, like the images or reflections in a mirror. Next idea.
Sanatanaha, which is ancient.
Ancient, yes, yes. So it not only is nityam outside of time and space, but it's also in time and pervades it. Oh, the earth is 4.3 billion years old. Oh, there was no self back then. No, 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 no. Before the entire universe was, I am. Consciousness predates time and space. Next idea.
That's the end of the verse, Jim.
All right, I think this is a good place to stop then tonight. That was 24?
Yeah.
All right, so we have 10 minutes to ask questions, and they do not need to be necessarily about tonight's verses. They can be about anything that pops into your mind.
I've got a question if nobody else wants to ask.
Go for it, Fang.
I have a question around reducing vasanas. Obviously, we all have to take actions, right? And our actions are impelled by our desires. The question is, how do you make sure you have sort of selfless desires? Because the other advice you've given also is, follow your bliss, right? But how do you know that following your bliss, like, I mean, the inherent in the bliss is that it makes you happy, right? And so is there something inherently selfish about that necessarily? Like, how do you match up the follow your bliss with the right selfless desire so you don't create more vasanas?
Well, it's an excellent question, and we're going to go into depth in this in chapters 3, 4, and 5. First of all action under all circumstances has desire as its motivation. So, how do I act without desire when all action is impelled by desire? What we want to talk about is what kind of desire is going on in the human heart. If we're operating from the idea that I must have this in order to be happy, when there's a quality of insistence, those are the things we want to investigate and let go of, because my happiness isn't out there. But preferences, yeah. Let me see if I can give you an example. Have you ever been to a restaurant and you've looked at the menu and you've chosen a particular dish, and the server comes, or the waiter, and you order the dish, and they go back to the kitchen, and then a minute later they come out and they say, "Oh, gee, I'm so sorry. We're out of that. Would you pick something else?" You ever had that experience?
Yep.
Do you get up and storm out and never go to that restaurant again?
Nope.
What do?
You order another dish.
Yeah. So you had desire, but your happiness was not dependent on it.
Hmm.
That's what I call preferences. We will always have those.
Okay. That makes a lot of sense. Thanks.
Yeah. And only you can make that internal determination. Can I let it go? Can I let it go?
Okay. That's really helpful. Thanks.
Now, in terms of exhausting our vasanas, things like career or relationships, stuff like that, some of these proclivities, my friend David Silva has a beautiful image. Some of these karmas are written in sand, and you just wipe them and they're gone. Others are written in wood. You got to do some sanding to get rid of them. Others are carved in stone, and we have to live through them. I was talking with a gal today, and I didn't know youngsters did this anymore. But we were pretty unconscious when I was in my 20s. And we thought we were somehow exceptional and graced, and if we had unprotected sex, we wouldn't get pregnant. Well, I'm living proof that spiritual birth control doesn't work for me, let's put it that way. So this gal's been doing some things that could get her pregnant, very simply. Now, we make these choices. If she were to get pregnant, what's she gonna do? How much does she like the fella? Is she gonna marry him? Is she gonna do the morning after pill? Is she gonna be a single mom? So with a lot of our desires, we have a lot of unintended consequences. If she were hypothetically to say, okay, I'm going to be a single mom. All right, girl, you got 18 years of commitment now to this human being. Probably $500,000 in expenditure. That's what happens. So my only point in talking about this is many, many times we step into situations we have no idea what we're getting into. And we have to just live through them. We have to live through them. We learn acceptance, but we have a duty to do frequently. Is that useful?
Yes, thanks.
Any other questions?
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
Okay, so my understanding is that, our goal in life is to essentially remove any karma that we have accumulated over several lifetimes over this lifetime. And anything you do is building karma. And so my question is around the actual nature of what you do, and if certain actions actually help you remove karma. So let's say, for example, I'm very devoted to my parents and I want to take care of them when they're sick and just be a really good daughter to them. I mean, when I do that selflessly, am I building karma, or am I actually eliminating karma through those actions? And I mean, not just that action, but are there any particular things that you can do, which is still doing action, but also eliminating karma?
We cannot avoid action. The dharma of the body is karma. I mean, the word dharma, its primary definition is the nature of a thing, the essence of a thing, without which it would not be the thing that it is. It's the dharma of fire to burn. It's the dharma of water to be wet. It's the dharma of sugar to be sweet. The dharma of the body is karma. Karma simply means work or action. All bodies act. You know what you call a body without karma? A corpse. So we cannot avoid action. So what we're concerned about is the reaction of our actions. If we act in the world in an egoistic way, which means I am the doer, and these results are all about me, that made me happy, or that made me unhappy, which means I want to repeat this action again, or I'll never do that again. These impressions, which we call vasanas, they impel us into future actions. So to subtleize your point, the goal of yoga is not to get rid of bad karma and develop good karma. That's too simplistic a view. It's vasana purgation. The primary power of a vasana is that it robs us of self-experience. We call that a varana shakti, the veiling power of vasana. How do I exhaust vasana? By acting intelligently. So we act according to our inherent latent proclivities. Sometimes we're able to not act out of insight. So if a friend came over and said, oh, I did cocaine last weekend for the first time. It was fantastic. You want some? What would be your response? That's dumb. I don't want to do that. So you cannot go down that road out of insight. Let's see. Now, something more subtle. Somebody really hurts your feelings, and what you want to do is get back at them or punish them. I'm not talking to that person. Now, if you do that for enough in your life, you end up really alone. Then you might have the insight, no, I need to learn how to work through conflict in my personal relationships. Or let's say as a teenager, you shoplifted and never got caught. And then as an adult, you run into Starbucks to get a coffee and you come back and the window of your car is broken and they stole your laptop. You don't see the cause and effect relationship. Them's that steals get stolen from. Karma. So all of a sudden a yogi starts to live pretty honestly. Why? Who wants to be robbed? You don't scream and yell at people. Why? You don't want to be screamed and yelled at. So our behavior starts to change just out of insight and common sense. Then we have a practice that's called titiksha. Who can tell me what titiksha means?
Forgiveness?
Forbearance.
Forbearance.
Forbearance. Titiksha is to practice what I call the point of power. So your point of power is how, because of your study of the scriptures, your own meditation, hanging out with a sangha, you respond to a difficult situation rather than reacting. So our karma is what life deals us. The force of our past maturing. Now, when it happens, what are you going to do about it? Titiksha means I do not react to life with redress or revenge or play the victim or get involved in self-pity. Somehow, largely through ignorance, this situation has come to me. Now, what am I going to do about it? Now, where this can get incredibly powerful. So I was talking with a young man this morning, and he has an unconscious tendency that the people in his life just don't behave, meaning they don't do what he wants them to do. His landlord doesn't do what he wants him to do. His father doesn't do what he wants him to do. His cat doesn't do what he wants him to do. You know, he's just annoyed at all these people and these, like this animal even. People aren't doing what they should. Guess who has the problem? See, so our karma will keep drawing these life situations to us. So our titiksha is to say, I'm the one with the expectation or the attachment or the identification. What I need to do is learn to let go, learn to accept life on life's terms. Or as the Christians say, return good for evil. Easy to say, not so easy to do. But this shifts all of this. Now, in the end, the way we ultimately get free from karma is to stay identified with the self. Karma does not touch yourself. Karma only touches the body. So there's a wonderful scene in the movie Gandhi where Gandhiji is imprisoned and he's quite happy. And he's writing letters and stuff. I think there's one where he's actually spinning his homespun cloth there. In other words, the Brits could imprison his body, but they could not imprison him. The dharma of the body is karma. The dharma of yourself is freedom, moksha. Is that helpful?
Yes, absolutely.
It's a deep, deep subject. But you get rid of the karma in your life, one, through insight, and number two, when you disidentify, disengage from the processes. The yogi's mind is the same in honor and dishonor, victory and defeat, pleasure and suffering, heat and cold. The samadrishta, which we'll learn to practice. Okay, I've gone over on our questions. Through the week, write them down, and then bring them next time. Now we'll sit for a bit. Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Sri Guru Bhyo Namaha. Hari Om. Om Tat Sat. Thank you all.
Thanks, Jim.
Thank you, Jim.
Good night.
Did the gal come back who logged off, or did she stay off?
Oh no, she came back. She asked you the question too.
Yes.
Okay. Tell me
Hi.
your name again. Is she still here?
Yes, my name is Madhurima, and my internet.
Madhurima. Okay.
Yes, my internet just broke for.
Oh, that's all right. We thought we'd lost you. The translation by Prabhupada is very popular, and it's the ISKCON one. But you know, there are three major schools of Vedanta. There's the dualist, the qualified non-dualist, and the non-dualist. Dvaita, Visishta Dvaita, Advaita. We are in that third tradition, the Advaita Vedanta tradition. Prabhupada is in the first, in the dualist tradition. So it's a very, you know, popular and well-known path. I love the pictures, but
Yeah.
you'll find that there will be an apparent tension between the approach that you find in that particular version and what I'm sharing with you all this evening and through this. We're a Shankara people, so this is our tradition. So did that make sense to you?
Yes, yes, it did. Yes, it did. I've had this book since high school, actually.
Yeah.
So.
I like the pictures.
The pictures are gorgeous.
Now, I'm of course very partial to my guru's translation, the Holy Gita, but anything from the Ramakrishna order, I can highly recommend.
Okay.
And like Swami Nikhilananda's translation, and they actually put out one that's not only got the verses from Gita, but they have a full translation of Shankara's commentary. It's pretty dense, but you know, there's lots and lots of good ones.
Okay.
All right. And I am your servant any way I can be of help. Adios. All right. Good night.
Good night.
Good night.